Good morning, Freedom Chasers. I'm going to make a quick little video to talk about the Anker Solix F3800, how I'm currently using it, how I plan to use it, and ultimately how to kind of min-max the solar setup. Because after hundreds of hours of research, it was really hard for me to get a clear answer on how I could maximize the solar input for a semi-permanent setup. So we're going to go over some of that here today, and I'll show you what I'm doing, see if that helps you. It's a beautiful winter Florida morning, almost afternoon. Still getting a little bit of shade on that panel, but I could just move it forward slightly and get rid of that. So the ultimate plan for the Anker is to power the shop. Until I'm set up for that, I'm doing everything on the house to kind of learn before I do anything super permanent, right? So I have the Anker Solix F3800 with one expansion battery. So I have over 7 kilowatt hours of battery storage, split phase potential. You can see right now, even with the shade, we're still getting a fair bit of power coming in. The way I currently have it set up in its experimental phase is I have 2 panels wired in parallel so that my wattage does not increase, but it does increase my amperage. I have a splitter, or a combiner rather, a 2-panel combiner that combines both the positive and the negative into one strand, and then I run that through a 50-foot MC4 connection cable through the garage. Kind of winds around, and this is really, it's janky, but this is just for experimental proof of concept, if you will. So that runs all the way around, and it comes into the Anker over here, and then I have another couple foot MC4 to XT60 connection. Plugs that in, boom, now I'm powering up. Then when I want to actually run the house, using the 30 amp outlet and a generator extension cord, run it all the way over here, runs into our sub panel. And on our sub panel, I have a few what we defined as critical load outlets, our offices, the fridge, and the garage. So I can power this at any time during this experiment to kind of offset the cost of the Anker. But eventually, once I get it all dialed in, it will power the shop. Well, that's the goal. The struggle is figuring out the placement for panels, and then seeing realistically what the power needs are going to be over there, because it's all hypothetical, right? I've run some experiments and we've been able to power our fridge for 2 days on this, but I noticed that with nothing plugged in, with just the Wi-Fi enabled, I chewed through about 3% of the battery capacity overnight. So you can disable that. I think you can still connect with it via Bluetooth, but disabling the Wi-Fi might help you conserve a little bit of power if you're really trying to stretch it out. The challenge for the Anker is that you cannot give it a ton of solar input. You're limited to 2 channels, 1200 watts each, 27 max amps coming in, 60 volts max coming in. You can exceed amps slightly, right? Because amps are pulled, but you cannot exceed the volts. The volts will damage the charge controller, from what I understand, if you exceed that. So I went to Signature Solar. I got 10 of these REC panels. Try to get that in focus for you. It's a little bit of shade. You can pause that and see. So these are 355 watt panels, 48 volts, just a smidge over 9 amps. So I will wire 3 of these together in parallel per channel to almost max it. For me, and the panels that I could find that were reasonably priced, these solar panels were $70 a piece. And then when you factor shipping, basically $90, $95 a piece, right? Shipped. Got a pallet of 10 of them from Signature Solar. Versus the Anker panels that are several $100s each. So I will not max the full 1200 watts. I'll be, what? A little over 1,000, 1,100-ish watts per channel. I'm okay leaving that on the table for the amount of money that I saved, you know. So you can do what you want to do, but ultimately I could never figure out. I was looking for as many videos as I could to say, how do you maximize this setup? The best panels that I found, and these are huge, these are not small, these are 39.5 by 79 inches. They are not bifacial. It's a little bit older technology, but they seem pretty dang efficient. I've gotten right about 700 watts input on these when they're in full sun, and these are, you know, 355 watts each. I don't have a perfect angle, you know, and they're just kind of out here. And so that's, for me, the Solar Noob, I was impressed by that. So, especially for the price. So 3 of these in parallel, that will keep our watts below 60, will be around 27 amps, and we'll run those 2 together to the Anker. And that will give us basically the maximum amount of solar input that we can for this setup. And that basic information, if that's all you're after, feel free to click away now. That's I was trying to find just that simple answer before I purchased this, and I couldn't. So there you go. REC 355 watt panels from Signature Solar. If you have 6 of them, I guess theoretically you could stack 4, you could over panel it, but that's gonna put your amps over 30, and the charge controller theoretically won't pull more than 30, but your wiring, you know, is gonna need to be bigger, and it gets pretty costly. So it feels like it's one of those things where I'm willing to put a little bit of money into it, but I don't want to spend a huge amount of money for something that's kind of temporary, right? If you're going to start spending big money on big gauge cable and mounts and stuff like that, you might as well get yourself the all-in-one, the EG4, whatever, the 6,000 or 8,000 watt inverter that you mount on the wall, and you could put a ton of solar to that, you know. So it's like a fine line where you're trying to get maximum capability for a reasonable amount of money. And for me, the ability to be portable here is key, because I'm able to, in an emergency situation, power critical loads in the house off of this. I'll be able to power the shop off of it. On our auxiliary well, we have a 30 amp plug, same thing, I could power that. And then on the opposite side of our house, we have a full house transfer switch to a 30 amp plug, so I could power the entire house if I needed to. And I made sure when we built this house, this is a newer house, that everything could run 30 amps. So 30 amps is enough to run our AC, it's enough to run our well. So with the exception of maybe the dryer and I think the oven, we could power everything with this. The expansion batteries are, wow, they're expensive. And I was able to get this set up here from Home Depot on Black Friday with military discount. Everything, I want to say it was like 3,500 bucks shipped, which is, might not be the best deal, but one of the best deals I've seen on it so far. So you figure 3,500 bucks on that, 1,000 bucks on solar panels, 200 to 300 bucks on material to make some DIY mounts, and then another 350 for cables, and you have a semi-permanent, pretty capable solar setup. And you know, I don't know, it seemed like a lot of value. Showing these again, it seemed like a lot of value for the money, but these panels are huge. I was really, and you know, you read the measurements online, but when they come in, it's just a whole different ball game. Like, they are big. I did not expect them to be that big. So that was, if you don't have a lot of space, these might not be the panels. But I don't know if the newer technology with the bifacial, if they get more compact per watt, I'm not sure. But these are definitely a lot bigger than a lot of the ones I thought I was going to be dealing with. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of the 3800. with this expansion battery and how I'm maxing it. I know this is just kind of a one take quick walkthrough. I just wanted to cover it I'm in the group on Facebook, the Anker Solix users group. It's a really good group, lots of people there that have the same products, and you can see their solutions and how they're using it, and it's really helpful. I think there's some Anker employees in there that answer questions for us as well. Definitely recommend checking it out. And if you're considering the Anker versus the EcoFlow, me, for the portability, ultimately I choose the Anker. If I really didn't want to move it around as much, I think the EcoFlow, the Delta Pro Ultimate, the ability to run a lot more solar to it for a more permanent style setup would be better. But if you're just looking to get a few thousand watts of power for something like, you know, the occasional use of the shop and some tools and lights and stuff like that, and you really want to be able to move it around, like from the house to the shop to the well, things like that, I think that's where this thing shines. So, you know, hopefully this helps anyone. The more videos, the better, right? Whether they're good quality, low quality. But it's been a good unit so far. It's done everything I've asked it to do in terms of running the compressor, running my little MIG welder. I ran all the loads on the sub panel at once. It took it. Battery seems pretty efficient. Like I said, the Wi-Fi, that's one thing I didn't notice. 3% overnight can get pretty taxing over time, especially in a long-term power outage. So that might be something to consider turning off. And then, yeah, overall, it's been a good unit. I'm really happy with it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away in the comments, and I'll keep you posted on the experiments and the progress. Thanks.